And so you are making progress, but then you go back, and you make progress, but then you go back, and you make progress, and then you go back. If you begin to understand that your work is to make it an emotional journey, let your journey to your financial fortune be an emotional journey, not an action journey. So how does that play out? Well, that plays out that you imagine it and you pretend it and you feel good about it, or you even hope it. But you just can't keep saying it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working without turning around and going in the opposite direction. You've got to find a way to keep pointed in the right direction. And your emotions are that indicator. So in every moment, you've got two emotions. One feels one way and one feels slightly better. In other words, one feels good, one feels bad. If you will look at it in that way. Sometimes people will say, Abraham, I can't tell the difference on this. And we say, then keep focusing upon it until it becomes strong enough that you can feel it. Your emotions will always give you guidance. And when you decide to let yourself be guided by your emotion, now you quantify your journey. And now people who are watching you, who haven't caught on to what your magic is, will notice that things are manifesting faster for you. But what they will notice first is you seem irrationally joyful anyway. How's it going? They'll say, great. You say, oh, did you get that job? No. It's coming. Why are you so happy? Because it's coming. No, really, seriously. Why are you so happy? Because it's coming. Well, did someone call you? No. Did you get the second interview? No. Why are you so happy? Because it's coming. Well, how do you know that it's coming? That's the big question. How do you know it's coming when the physical evidence is to the contrary? How do you know? I know law of attraction, and I know how I've been feeling, and I know that there's not a shred of evidence to the contrary of it. I know that when I feel this way, things are moving in the direction. I've been here before. I felt this way that one other time, and it panned out well. In other words, you can let loose of all of the evidence that is to the contrary when you know the law. And the law says that that which is likened to itself is drawn. And what it means is the vibration that you are emanating is being matched, and the evidence is soon to follow. You live in this wonderful environment where there is a buffer of time. And that buffer of time says it's not going to manifest in the first moment you thought it. And friends, that's a very, very good thing. Because until you get really good at directing thought, you don't want every thought that you think to manifest. Nothing is more important than the way you feel. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, our mantra would be, nothing is more important than that I feel good. But then we would modify that by saying, nothing is more important than that I feel good. And today, from where I stand, I'm going to do the best job I can of finding the best feeling thought that I can find from where I am. Not the best thought I've ever thought. Not the best feeling thought I've ever found. Not the best thought anybody has ever thought. Only the best feeling thought I can find from where I am. And as you care about that and you find an improved thought, you'll find another and another and another. And as you do it on one subject, you'll be able to do it on another and another and another and another. And the more you do it, subject after subject, the more you clean up your vibration until you become so expectant of good things to come to you. You know people like that, don't you? They offer a thought with calm and ease. They don't struggle about it. They don't work nearly hard enough in your estimation. And things just go their way. How can that be? Because there's no contradiction in their vibration. So then you say, okay, suppose I play your silly game and I clean up my vibration. What do I do about all of those other people that are up close to me in my life who aren't having any of it? And we say, then the world is treating them the way they vibrate, and the world is treating you the way you vibrate. And you say, yes, but this person's in my world. And we say, give your attention to the most positive aspects of that person, and that's the part of that person that will be in your world. Well, where will the rest of that person go? The rest of that person will rendezvous with ornery toads at work. People who flip each other off in traffic. You get to the point where you begin to recognize that everything that comes to you is coming in response to something that you're doing. Do you know that there are diseases that are vibrational matches to fear? And there are diseases that are vibrational matches to frustration. And we got to tell you, you want this one, not this one. Do you know that there are traffic accidents that are vibrational matches to despair and total disempowerment? And there are traffic accidents that are matches to frustration. And there are traffic accidents that are matching anger. And there are the absence of traffic accidents that match appreciation. In other words, everything that comes to you matches where your average vibration is on those subjects. See how it works? Everything that comes to you is evidence of your vibration. So, we are eager to talk with you about anything that is important to you.
You mentioned today that there are diseases that are related to specific emotions.
Well, because everything is related to your vibration, and your vibration is responsible for the way your emotion feels. So,
got that. So what I'm wondering is, to handle a bodily condition, is it enough to get to feel better about the condition? Do I just need to feel better about the negative emotion? Or should I be looking for some sort of underlying resistance that causes? I'm just not quite sure whether I'm making too much out of it.
Ultimately, you're wanting to get to the place where you can ignore anything that you do not want while you give your attention to what you do want. In other words, some of all of what you have just said is what we would recommend. The thing about having something that you are working on being about your body is that your body and how it feels right now is everywhere you go. In other words, it's hard for you to not notice the way you feel or not notice how you be when you are being that way. And yet, that is the work. If you have a bodily condition that is not as you want it to continue, then you must find a way to look through this lens called body without noticing that. You have to find a way to focus somewhere else. And that really is the key. You have to focus upon what you do want, and in doing so, withdraw your attention from what you do not want.
Okay.
So, what were the options you gave us?
Well, it seemed that if the disease were related to a specific emotion, that maybe all I needed to do was deal with the emotion.
Well, that's always true. In other words, if you could realize that your emotion is telling you about the content of your vibration, so then you move your thoughts about with the interest only of improving the emotion, you would solve any issue.
Okay.
We had a conference with health practitioners in San Antonio a few weeks ago. Healers and doctors and dentists and all manner of physical therapists. And one of the things that we uncovered as we chewed together through the day is that so many doctors and scientists, they're looking for the cure to the disease. And we say, unless you get to the vibrational cause, then the cure will only be temporary. You know people who have something go wrong with their body, and the doctor, through surgery or medication or process, brings a resolution to that, only to discover that another disease squirts out right behind it. And the reason for that is there was no resolution to the vibrational discord. So when you say, if I could just improve the way I feel, would that be enough? We say, that's not all that's happening. When you improve the way you feel, that means you are redirecting your thoughts, which means you are refocusing your thoughts, which means you're achieving a different vibration, which means there is a different vibrational mix going on inside of you, which means law of attraction is going to give you different results. It's a big deal to change the way you feel. It's everything, in fact. Technically, you think a thought, and then you have an emotional response to that thought. Emotions don't create. Emotions are indicators of what you are in the process of creating. And in the same way that you would not put a happy face sticker on your gas gauge because you don't like seeing it empty, so depressing, that empty tank, I will put a happy face sticker. Oh, there, that feels so much better. Because you want to know what the gauge says. We're not encouraging you to pretend that you feel differently than you do. And that's what we mean when we say getting to the vibrational cause of something. Acknowledge that there's discord and then work to soothe the discord. But the art of allowing says, you can soothe the discord without somebody else doing something about it. And when the situation that you are discussing is your physical body, that's really a wonderful opportunity for you to show yourself how responsive everything in the universe that is important to the creation of a body will cooperate with aligned thoughts. You've just got to align your thoughts with well-being. And if you find one that feels a little better, you are ignoring that thought and finding that thought. And if you find a thought that feels a little better, you are ignoring that thought. But the thing that has to come about, you have to be willing and ready to release the people that are watching you in this progression, who don't think that you should be feeling better just because you've changed your thought and have improved your emotion. In other words, they're going to demand more action from you. They're going to want something more real. They want you to get out of the airy-fairy. They want you to get out of the pretending and out of the delusional, and they want you to face reality. And it's not easy to convince people that facing reality will hold you there, and ignoring reality will give you an opportunity for something different.
Right. I liked one thing you said earlier, start with something little. My history, I developed computer software. And I found that every time I learned a new language or a new tool that was supposed to help, I had just as much trouble as I did any other time. For years, I wondered why. Until I found out that when I got a new tool, the very first thing I tried was the hardest thing that I hadn't ever succeeded in solving. And Abraham's hardly any different. You know, I've got to start a little.
Most are that way. Do not be uncomfortable about it. Most people bring their biggest issue, and that's the one that they want to start with. But you see, this environment in which you are living serves you in that it provides contrast, which gives you opportunity for new ideas. And that comparison with one another, that comparison with the other people that you are seeing, that's all part of the launching of the creation part of the equation. But what we want you to understand is that there are 3 steps. The first step is launch the thing. And you can't help but do that because contrast helps you do that all day, every day. The second step is source will answer it. That's not your work. The first step is your work, but you do it unconsciously. You don't have to give a conscious awareness to giving birth to a desire. It just happens. You don't have to stand in the middle of something you don't want and say, all right, now in the middle of what I don't want, I'm going to launch a desire about what I do want. In other words, you don't have to do that. Being in that moment causes that to happen. But what you do have to do is find vibrational alignment with what you want. And the only way that that translates in a way that is meaningful and easy for you to discern is, I can feel the difference when I close the gap. And so a lot of people feel resistance at first when they begin to hear us because we're just flat out annoying. They've been living life and they have this big dream and we're saying, pretend you already have it. And they think, I need something meatier.
Yeah,
Give me an action process. And we say, if you don't take the time to shift your vibration, then everything that you think of to do is going to be from the framework that you are standing in and will net you the same results. You just can't continue to perceive things as they are. Here's the best word that we can give this. The universe is yielding back to you in terms of relationships, bodily conditions, finances, everything. The universe is yielding back to you exactly what you expect.
Yeah. Expect
is the most powerful word in the universe because expect means through trial and error, I have come to expect this, to believe this. In other words, an expectation is a powerful point of focus. An expectation is a honing of energy and a focusing on an outcome that the universe is all too ready to accommodate. So when you expect something, it's going to happen. You tell your children, I expected that would happen. Mm-hmm. And if they have been listening to us, they would say,
Yeah.
You made me do it. You drew this negative behavior right out of me because you focused upon me in such a powerful way with your powerful mind, and the universe, including me, cooperated with your expectation. And we say they would not be wrong. In other words, no one can create in your experience, but there is a powerful influence afoot, you see. Yes, very good.
Thank you.